Welcome back to class. We've got a few less than normal. We're going to miss Danny and Gracie and Andrew today as they're traveling in the car. Welcome. It's good to see you. Kinley, maybe I'm going to see you on Thursday. I don't know.
I really hope so. I'm super excited. My mom is really nervous for her presentation.
Oh, she'll do great. I'm kind of nervous too. I'm going to Texas on Thursday, so it's exciting for the big MDM celebration. Some of your moms are members, and Naomi, your mom's going to be there, right? This is going to be fun, and Kinley's mom's going to be there. That's all I know. I don't think Beth or Kenna are, right? They're not going to be there. Yeah, it's too far away sometimes. All right, let's begin with a prayer by Naomi, and then we'll get going on our discussion. Go for it.
Dear Heavenly Father, please bless this day. We thank thee so much that we're all able to gather together to have this class. Please bless that the Spirit will lead and guide our thoughts and ideas. Please bless that we'll be able to pin down our opinions with the help of our classmates and the teachers so that we'll be able to come to gain further knowledge. Please bless that we'll be able to have a good rest of the day and be able to have missionary opportunities and say things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thanks. When you said pin down, it reminded me, didn't I share in this class Socrates' quote? Yeah, he uses the word tied down, but I thought that was kind of cool. That was awesome. Hi, Hiram. It's good to see you. Okay. Oh my gosh, I'm bleeding. Just getting it all over everything. I didn't even know it. Have no idea. I might have to run and get a Band-Aid, but I'll hold this on for a minute. Okay, I think I tried to extract a pound of flesh from my finger. Just kidding. Okay, if you go to excuse me, the class notes, where are they? I want to sometime today, and I don't know if it's going to be right now, probably in about 10 minutes. Excuse me. I want to divide up into two groups, and I want one group to look for as many examples of justice they can, and as many examples of mercy that they can in this book. And then we'll come back and we'll share. Oh my goodness, I got something in my throat. Maybe it's good that we're dividing up into groups. So, but first of all, how'd it go? This might not have been your first reading of The Merchant of Venice. Who had read it before? By raise of hands. Naomi's read it before.
I had watched it before, but not read it before.
Okay. It's fun to watch. It's a fun one to watch. Okay, anybody else? No one else? Cool. Okay. And by the way, we need to excuse Jolene. She's working, isn't she? Are you alone, Jacoby? Is your mom up in Idaho?
Yeah, she's in Idaho. I'm in Utah.
Yeah. So your mom is working full time. Yep, she's in the truck. She's driving a beat truck, right? So she said she was going to keep the camera off and just listen in, which is just fine with me. She's making buku bucks. If anybody ever wants to make a lot of money, learn to drive a truck and go work for the beet harvest in Idaho. So what were some of your first thoughts? Let's go into some of those first thoughts of reading The Merchant of Venice.
I think it was probably the most enjoyable read that we've had so far. Like it was just a story, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It was nicer on the brain, right? Yeah. Cool. Love it. Any other thoughts? Carter. And then
It was the easiest play I've ever had to read. I always struggle to read plays. I didn't really struggle with this one, which was nice.
yeah. Good.
I was kind of bugged with the way that they manipulated the law. Like they just tried to use it in their own advantage. And I can see why they did it because it was kind of an unjust punishment. But at the same time, you don't get to manipulate the law to your ways whenever you want.
Yeah. Obviously, they don't have a lot of laws set up in the 1600s in Venice, right? Yeah. And poor Italy. Italy is a bunch of city-states that just have been warring with each other for hundreds of years. And so they're not yet quite there with good government. Good. Any
Yeah,
other?
the whole thing, I was really confused about why they hated the Jews so much. Like, I don't know if there was something going on at that time that made them very biased against the Jews, but I was like, yeah, I felt like there was a lot of hatred against Shylock.
Yeah, Shakespeare really portrayed that hatred that many people had against the Jews. I don't particularly know why, except that in the Old Testament, it does say that because they've rejected Christ, they will be as a scourge. And so in this play, it does show the Christians hate the Jews because the Jews did not accept Christ. But of course, they're not being Christ-like as they do that, right? Yeah, definitely. I'm glad you noticed that. I'm sure everybody else noticed. Did everybody else notice how hated Shylock was and how Shylock hated them? Yeah, good. Any other thoughts? First thoughts that you had? Okay.
Shylock,
Oh, go
I
ahead.
had one more thought, but I thought it was interesting when he was talking about how his daughter ran away. He wasn't really like, my poor daughter. He's like, my money, oh, my money, my jewels.
Yeah. So that's another thing about the Jews is that they were actually very blessed with abilities to be successful anywhere they went. If you looked at many of the cities all around Europe where the Jews would where they would settle, they usually were the merchants. They were usually the ones that lent money to others because they had some. They lived the principles of finance. They saved. They taught their children the law of God every night. Of course, it was the Mosaic law, but they actually lived principles of finance, and they were able to be successful. So my husband's last name, our last name Greenman, is actually a Jewish name. And it's interesting that my husband's history, when his brother was born, my in-laws wanted to name him Aaron, Aaron, just like you, Aaron, which is a Jewish name, of course. And my in-laws' parents were super fearful that they would have a grandson named Aaron Greenman, because they felt like he would be ostracized and hurt because they had lived through the 20s, 30s, and 40s with the last name of Greenman, and they were persecuted quite a bit because of that last name, but they weren't Jewish, they were Christian. So the funny thing is my in-laws ended up changing their son's name to Erin, which is a girl's way of spelling Aaron. So his name is Christopher Aaron Greenman. And he's got a woman's name for the middle name because of the fear that was there, because of the fear of having that Jewish name. So it's a real thing, and it really did exist. And there are stories in our family that kind of show this prejudice and this pride that was out there against the Jews. Elijah, yeah, there's a lot of corruption in Italian government. I'm glad that you bring that up. Still probably going on. There's a lot of. Oh, go ahead.
I just brought it up because it was a really recent story. She was just released pretty recently, but I've listened to a lot of her podcasts, and she's just a really interesting person. She's from America. She was a transfer student there, and she got wrongfully convicted. And it's just, she does a great job of talking about the mechanics of how that government and how that law system works, which is enlightening.
Yeah, actually, it's more enlightening to be here than it is to be there. Yeah, so good point. Thank you. There really, truly was corruption in government. There really, truly was a hatred against the Jews. And the Jews hated the Christians. That's just, it was real. It is still real. Hopefully, after conference, we will begin to treat each other much better. I loved conference. Okay, what I want to do, and the reason why I want to go through this and look for the examples of justice and mercy is because I think we can write together today. I want to examine principles of justice and examine principles of mercy together. But in order to do that, in order to get the principles, we want to get the examples. So I'm going to divide you up into groups. And I'm going to just do it randomly. Hello, Ryan. Glad that you're here. Let's see. I've got a breakout room. I'm just going to put in 2 breakout rooms. I'm going to say assign automatically, and I'm just going to create, and then you'll just be put into rooms. Okay. So let me just see where Naomi and Aaron are. Oh, good. You're in a room that has less people, which will add you. Okay, this will be great. Okay, I'm going to open them up. I want you to take, this is going to be kind of a long process because I want you to really look page to page. There's going to be some silent time. There's going to be some exploring, some discussion time. I want to give you 20 minutes, okay? That's a lot longer than maybe you were expecting, but under, let's see, under the examples of justice, I'm gonna just put a number 1 there, but you're gonna, of course, continue and put other examples, or of course, other numbers under there as you go. But I want group number 1 to be justice, looking for examples of justice. And group number 2, looking for examples of mercy. And this can be throughout the entire play. Okay. So group 1 has Carter Downs, Elijah, Hiram, Jacoby, and Ryan. And group number 2 has Aaron and Naomi, Enoch, Jolene. Oops, Jolene shouldn't even be in there. You know what? Let me. Okay, I've just changed it to Jacoby. So all the 3 girls are going to be in one group. And then Jolene is going to be in the group with boys, but don't move to that group, Jolene. Just stay. All right, so we've got Carter, Elijah, Hiram, and Ryan. You're all looking for justice, okay? And I don't know how it worked us this way, but all the girls and Aaron and Enoch are going to look for justice of mercy or justice of mercy, examples of mercy. Got it? So it's 9:15 now. Let's come back at 9:35. Okay. Ryan. Let me pause. Hey, just curious if you guys have any questions. I forgot to ask when we separated. Nope. Okay.
You just wanted us to put all the different examples in the class notes, right?
Yeah, under examples of justice. Yep. Okay, thanks. Also, if you could also put like the act number, like let's say you find something in Act 5, Scene 3, just put 5.3. And then we know where that example is. Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Saying to what's his name? Starts with a B. Basonio or something.
Yeah.
He says, "Don't concern yourself about me. Just that you have stuff to live for, and I don't." I'm not saying he's a good character throughout the whole book, but that moment was a good moment.
Yeah. Okay. So are we looking for principles of mercy, Sister Greenman, or are we looking for examples?
You're looking for examples. Thank you. And so after we come back, we'll come together, we'll examine them together, and we'll come up with principles together. So I just want to know if you had any questions besides that. Is everybody cool and looking for examples?
Do you want us to read through the whole play and then like start from the beginning and find principles of it, or do we just skip to where we already know there's mercy?
Skip to where you know there's mercy, and then hopefully everybody can find some, but skim through. So last week I had said, as you read, look for examples of justice and mercy. Hopefully you marked them. Don't worry if you didn't. It's okay. But yeah, just go find the ones that you know. Good question. Any other questions that you have? Okay, when you write them down on the class notes, please write down like the number of the act. Like let's say you found something in Act 5, Scene 3, put 5.3. If you found something in Act 1, Act 1, Scene 2, go 1.2. That way we can find it and go to those examples. Sound good? Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you. Oops. That's not what I wanted. Hey, everybody's coming back. You guys got a lot written down, both sides. It's a lot easier to find examples of justice than mercy. I just want you to know. I mean, That's almost how it always ends up, is less mercy than justice, actually. Okay, how'd it go? Can we get a report from the group in the examples of justice? Can you briefly, somebody in your group, can you briefly share with us what you found? Who would like to be the spokesperson for that group?
I guess I can do it if no one else wants to. Do you want me to just go through these the list that we came up with and just like read them off, or like give a summary of the lines?
Just maybe give a little summary so you can get kind of tell us how you're thinking about it. Okay.
So we divided it into 4 sections. So we all took different sections or acts. And then we just kind of try to find patterns or examples of justice. So first one, we kind of talked about the box challenge and how like it required everyone in that challenge to live with their own consequences, right? So you see like the Moroccan prince, he has to deal with the consequence of choosing the wrong box. Just the same way as Bassanio, succeeds and he lives with that consequence. And then obviously with the second example, it's kind of the focus point of the entire play, but we see how Shylock seeks retribution in the form of flesh for like his bond, but also to pay for this persecution that he's personally received from Antonio, and like kind of genuinely, like not genuinely, generally experienced by the Christians. We see a lot of tension between the Christians and the Jews, like at least pointed out.
It's probably genuine too.
Shylock demands full dues because of the period of the loan is up, right? So he's not extending that warranty. He's sticking to his bond. Like number 4 says, I'll have my bond, speak not against my bond. It's kind of a broad summary of his kind of perspective on this. Number 5, this was a little bit more of a funnier one I found, but it was talking about, when Jews convert, it was between, what was it, Narcissa or
Marissa?
Yeah, I think it was from Jessica and Lorenzo, or one of them. Someone was talking about, because Jessica was converting from Jew to Christian, they were talking, it was like a joke, but they were talking about if all the Jews convert, then they'll have disastrous consequences on the price of bacon, right? And that's a consequence of justice, right? We see market adjustments. 6, Shylock refuses to accept a large sum in order to enforce justice upon Antonio. Again, we see him sticking to his bond instead of changing the contract after it's already been set in stone. 7, there's no power in Venice that can alter a decree established, right? We're seeing again with this bond, in terms of justice, in terms of keeping to this bond, in terms of keeping to the law, right? No, nothing can sway Shylock. Narcissa is mad at Rantino for giving away the ring. I think that's how you say it. But yeah. They like the lawful bond of this time. Antonio to Shylock, Narcissa and Gratino, and Portia and was it Mauricio, whatever his name was. They both have these marital bonds symbolized by the rings, that whenever he broke that promise, that was a breaking of her trust. So it makes sense that she'd be mad. Venetian law prohibits the shedding of any Christian blood. Shylock receives the penalty and is made to be a Christian and give up half of his wealth to Antonio, who he attempted to have killed, right? So because of Portia's quick thinking and knowledge of the laws at the time, and when we see that Shylock receives or would receive this penalty to be killed, but instead they work out another just way where both parties consent to this alternative action. Yeah.
Great examples. And I'm glad you asked about the pronunciation. When you see the word Christian, you see the TI makes a ch sound, and the Venetian, the TI makes a sh sound. So it's actually Graciano. And actually, Narissa is without an S right there. So it's just Narissa. Excellent. Does anybody in that group want to add something that may have been missed? You think, are you okay with what I just said? Or do you want to add something? You okay? Okay. All right, let's go to the examples of mercy. Is there somebody that would like to chime in and talk about the examples of mercy from your group?
Okay, I will.
Okay,
Um,
thanks.
yeah. So actually finding mercy was a lot harder than I thought it would be. Right? It would just be the opposite of justice, right? Or like it would be tied with examples of justice was kind of what we were thinking at first, but it really wasn't, right? Like kindness isn't mercy. So it was a little bit confusing, but there were 2 loans given. The first, Antonio promised to help Bassino, I don't really know. And from Shylock to Antonio, right? So there was agreements on both sides where they could have held their property, right? That was their right to hold their property, but instead they were merciful to each other and decided to allow each other to take out bonds and loans. Antonio was merciful to Jessica when he chose to give Charlotte's inheritance to Jessica instead of keeping it for himself, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that could be decided as just since he felt, but we felt like that was kind of merciful since he probably could have kept that to himself. And then Enoch found one, you cannot be better employed, Bassino, than to live still. We didn't discuss that one as much, but it was also along the lines of being merciful to one another. Portia supplied Antonio with money to fulfill the loan and interest. She was merciful, right? It was her property. She decided to give it up. Portia and Narissa forgave their husbands or lovers. I'm not really sure if they were married at any point after giving up their rings, right? So at the end, there was kind of a resolution. We weren't really sure if forgiveness was given, but they definitely weren't incredibly mad at their husbands. But yeah, we feel like that was pretty merciful of them. And I don't know if Enoch wants to elaborate on his, but I didn't really hear that one. I was writing stuff down.
Go
Well,
for it.
it's the one I started out, and it was when Bassanio was offering to take the place of Antino. He was like, "Let me die," and then Antino's like, "No, you have something to live for. I do not. Just live, and I'll die."
Oh, that's awesome. Do you have that one written down? Which number is it?
In number 4.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. Got it. Yes. Good. Okay. So yeah, go ahead. Does somebody speak up? Okay. Are there any others in this group that want to add to something that Kinley or Enoch did not say that you'd like to add to it? Okay. So when we're looking for principles, we go through the 5 types of questions. We're going to, and of course, the principal question is going to get us to a principle right there in number 3, right? But number 4 is interdisciplinary, where you're going to go look for evidence in all these other areas of your principle. And then in application, of course, we're going to be looking at how we can apply this principle. So and I loved what Hiram put in the chat box. He wants to know what people's definition of mercy is. So let's ask ourselves the first question, the first type of question. What is mercy? And then let's have a little discussion on this. So what is mercy? I don't know if Hiram, you want to just copy and paste that into A or something, or talk about it for a minute, and we can write it down. So Hiram, why don't you read that to us when you get that down? Let's keep just the justice part. Let's keep it down to under right principles of justice. I'll put in, we'll come to that. Whoops, I got to get my fingers in the right place. Okay, we'll go there. So, and then meaning, we'll go back this way. Okay, so can you share with us, Hiram, what you wrote?
Yeah. Okay, so I liked what Kinley said, how mercy and justice are really, they're kind of tied together. So I think mercy is the repeal of that which was owed or acceptance of repayment under more moderate circumstances. So when someone does something, they reap a result, and that result may be something that they cannot repair, or they can't really make amends. So the creditor or the person who the wrong was done to can choose to forgive or accept something that the debtor is able to pay. I don't know how it works without, I mean, I used an example of money and stuff, but I wasn't sure how to word it without using creditor and debitor, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's quite often used with money, but there's also, there also could be something that, let's say someone can harm my child that's irreparable from him, he can't repair it. Doctors can try, or psychologists can try to help repair, but it's so damaging that you're right. It's something that's impossible to repair except for through the Savior, maybe. So there are things that can be done physically, emotionally, mentally, maybe even spiritually, possibly. Yeah, I think you guys were around when my brother decided to forego his temple covenants and start making his children smoke marijuana and drink alcohol in front of his wife. It was a couple of years ago, and I was going through a really hard time that this was happening. So spiritually, my brother was actually just kind of just exposing my nieces and nephews to harmful substances, spiritually and physically. And they have not yet recovered. And I don't know if they will. They're all kind of going down a path that's destructive, actually. So yeah, I think someone can harm anyone physically, spiritually, mentally, and what's the next one? What did I say?
Intellectually.
Mentally, intellectually. Yeah, I think that can happen. So yeah, it's not just with money, debt, or, a debtor, or what's the other word? I'm having one of those days. Yeah, creditor. Thank you. I am having one of those days. So anybody want to add to what mercy is that maybe we haven't talked about?
Well, in our group, oh, sorry, Enoch, I need to raise my hand. In our group, we talked about, like, in the nature of mercy, how, right, the end goal when Antonio was brought to court, in the ending, there was mercy shown to him, but it wasn't Shylock giving mercy because he wasn't willing, right? And it wasn't necessarily Portia giving the mercy because she wasn't the one to which he was due, right? So we were like a little bit confused mercy has to be willingly given, right? And Shylock wasn't willing. Portia wasn't the one who he owed, but in the end, he was shown mercy, right? So we were a little bit like, that's a really interesting situation that had happened, which we were a little bit confused on.
Did logic show mercy?
Right. Eventually, Shylock's thing wasn't what he thought it was. But can circumstances show mercy? Because it has to be a willing choice to show mercy, like with Shylock. So can circumstances choose? I don't know.
Yeah, and does it have to be the person's willing?
where-
Go ahead, Enoch.
Yeah, we were also to say that the debtor, or no, the creditor usually has to be the one that gives the mercy for the most part, because you can't, someone else can't really show mercy for the most part. There's a few exceptions if they are not the creditor.
Yeah. So should it be a person that shows mercy? Yeah. Logic is not a person. But it's interesting that Portia was, because she was thinking of mercy. What's that awesome quote that she gives right in that, does anybody know where it is, where she comes into the court scene and she has this long soliloquy?
Mine's in Act 4, Scene 1, the one where it says the quality of mercy is not strained.
Yeah.
Line 180,
There it is.
185.
Yes, perfect. Yeah, so because she's thinking mercifully, Portia is thinking the principles of mercy. She knows what it is, and she says it's so much better than revenge, because in the end, I don't know if it was justice that Shylock really wanted, except for he wanted revenge because he had 3 times the amount of money offered him. So it wasn't justice that he wanted, really. It was revenge. And so because she is thinking mercifully, does her logic then extend that mercy? What do you think? And this could be a meaning question. Let's just change this to a meaning.
Or my thoughts are, was she the one that was able to open the mercy given from the people who wrote the law? Like, she may not have given it, but may have opened the door to the law that gave the mercy from the person who wrote the law.
Yeah, and actually the contract was the law, and the law said only what needed to be extracted from him. What was it?
Just the flesh.
1 pound of flesh. Did it say anything of the blood? Did it say anything about anything less or more? So really, she is looking at the contract, which is the law, and she's seeing loopholes in that law, that it's not clear. If it were to be clear, it would say approximately 1 pound of flesh, including the blood that drips from it. You know, if you're going to write a law that is going to be really clear, and that, yeah, go ahead, Enoch.
Naomi has her hand up first, and then.
Oh, sorry, I didn't even see that. Go ahead.
Thank you. I was just thinking about how you said the contract had the loopholes, but how does that relate to like, there's General Conference talks about sequential order, and kind of it makes me think of how there's laws predicated upon the blessings we receive, and how does that relate to mercy? Like, there are laws set in place, but mercy just follows the law. So things that do have to be open, sometimes mercy cannot be given, and mercy cannot be given until justice is satisfied, which is why, Christ had to die for our sins so that we could have mercy. And how do those things follow sequence?
Okay, Enoch.
And I
kinda like a-
also feel like the law never said you couldn't get blood though. And that's where I feel like she started manipulating it, saying you can't do this, this, because it never said you couldn't. And there was no other laws really restricting that.
Okay, Elijah.
This is my main point too. Like, it seems like there's not really this idea of justice as much as there's this idea of like rhetoric. Like, who's best at convincing that their point is logical rather than just actually having a logical point. Because I feel like if these courts were more just, they wouldn't really have to debate whether or not, you could have a human sacrifice in the middle of the courtroom.
Right.
And so what's interesting about that is, like, once you leave justice behind, I mean, and you have nothing to ground you, right? Because they weren't grounded. Like, the whole reason that like Antonio survived wasn't because of mercy or justice. It was because he was kind of saved in this Deus Ex Machina kind of fashion, where like, oh, at the last second, Portia reads through between the lines and she saves them. And that's kind of what I think makes this a comedy. Is like, in like any realistic world or any Shakespearean world, this would be a tragedy, right? There's no reason for him not to get his pound of flesh. That's what makes it sadistically funny, and I think that points a lot of flaws in the way that at least the Italians approach law. I could see a lot of similarities in the way that we kind of use rhetoric to ground what we claim is lawful or just. And so I just think that's interesting.
Yeah, and I'm actually a little bit confused, Sister Greenman, if someone owes the creditor, right? The debtor owes the creditor, but then someone intervenes and pays the creditor. That's not mercy, right? Because the person who intervenes wasn't owed anything in the first place, or wasn't mercy because they had a right to their property and forewent it to then go pay the creditor. Because Enoch was saying that have to pay the creditor if that wants to be the mercy. I don't know. The creditor has to forego the punishment in order for that mercy to be present, or does it have, and can anybody intervene and forego the right of property, and is that mercy?
I want to get back to that. Remind us we don't. I think Carter had his hand first raised, not digitally. So let's go with Carter and then we'll go with Naomi after that. Okay.
I was just going to respond to Kinley, but if we're coming back to it later, I'll wait.
No, too. I want you to, that's what I was hoping that some of you would respond to Kinley. Go for it.
Okay, so I think that in this case it is, well, in any case, if somebody else is willing to give up their means to pay off another person's debt, that is merciful. I can see how it'd be to do with, how it'd have to do with, I lost my word. How Enoch thinks it would be the creditor. It's not mercy if the creditor's not doing it, but I think it's mercy because it's somebody who had no interference with that situation or some part of that situation that's paying off the debt. And I think that's a case of mercy, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Go for it. V Hills.
I feel like my thoughts aren't completely fully formed yet, just some random ideas, but
Let them come out, then they'll form.
I like what Carter said. I think it's a lot of like, depends on your position you have, like the position of power, because you have to have money. You have to have money in order to pay the debt. Or if you look at like the atonement, Christ was able to intervene because he was perfect. So it depends on the position coming in where you're intervening from. And that's where it's like a stainless lamb. he was able to do this because he had no flaws or because they have extra money to pay the debt, where that is acceptable to intervene. Whereas if you don't have anything to offer, there's no point in intervening because you cannot pay the debt.
Excellent. Okay.
I think I didn't clarify what I was saying, right? Because I wasn't saying that there couldn't be others who intervened. I was saying that oftentimes, not always, that creditor needs to be willing to accept the offer from another. Or because, like, in that case where someone else intervenes and pays for it, he is, instead of, the justice is still fulfilled, it's just shifted to another person who has the means, as Naomi was saying, whereby they can pay it.
Okay, so wait, I have one other question then, like kind of what Elijah is saying in the chat. So like if someone is in this really big like money crisis, right? They owe a lot of money to somebody. Someone intervenes but gives them a basket of food, right? They had a right to that food because it's their property, but it's not necessarily paying off a creditor, but it's still helping them. Is that merciful because they had a right to their food? Or like what? Yeah, I guess Elijah, what do you mean by an ethical lens? Like, is it something non-related to the actual problem or what?
Well, mercy applies on multiple levels of analysis, right? Right now, we're looking at this example or this one level of analysis, which is repaying a debt, right? That comes from Shakespeare. But that doesn't mean that it's limited to that one level of analysis, right? Like you can show mercy by other means than just, giving someone physical fiat currency. And so to answer your question, yeah, it is merciful to give someone a basket of food, even if they need something else, right? It's not, I mean, I think of mercy more as just compassion. And it's not as mathematically elegant as the way that we're thinking about it right now. It's not like, oh, someone needs something. It's only merciful if you fulfill that need completely. Like, what we were talking about before, like with the law, talking about how it needs exactly a pound of flesh. Like there are approximate ways that you could help someone. And in some cases that can be giving them a basket of fruit. I mean, I'm sure that if I was in a pretty rough state, psychologically, spiritually, because I owed someone a lot of money, I'm sure that I would feel mercy or feel like someone was compassionate towards me, even if they didn't give me that money, but they gave me some sort of attention or care, right? So I don't think that it's useful to think of mercy as like only pertaining to like filling someone's needs, especially monetarily.
Excellent. Here's the 1828 dictionary that says, who would like to read this first paragraph? Somebody want to help us read that? Okay, go for it, Carter. Wait,
Benevolence, mild. Go ahead.
Let me make it a little bigger. I just realized. Okay, go for it now.
That benevolence, mildness, or tenderness of heart, which disposes a person to overlook injuries or to treat an offender better than he deserves, the disposition that tempers justice and induces an injured person to forgive trespasses and injuries, and to forbear punishment or inflict less than law or justice will warrant. In this sense, there's perhaps no word in our language precisely synonymous with mercy. That which comes nearest to it is grace. It implies benevolence, tenderness, mildness, pity, or compassion and clemency, but exercised only towards offenders. Mercy is a distinguishing attribute of the Supreme Being.
Okay. I think Elijah hit it closer to where we need to go with mercy. That there is no huge rules surrounding mercy. It is basically a change of heart toward an offender. And even the person who's been injured is a change of heart. Oh, sorry, even the person who is the injured, sorry, even the injurer can have mercy in the midst of his injury and come and just change his heart toward the other and have that compassion. And I think that's what we need to remember, that the Lord is the same with us. We do injury to our siblings, to our parents, to ourselves, to other people. And the Lord asks us to repent. And we repent every day, I hope, and especially every week when we go take the sacrament. And he forgives and he shows mercy through the atonement, as Naomi said, through the atonement. Okay, go ahead, Naomi.
One thing I was kind of just remembering what I actually wrote down on my paper, but I think Enoch said it earlier, something along the lines of kind of like, you have to address something before you can have mercy, and be able to apply mercy in the most, in the best way possible, where it's like, even God, he has to address our sins and we have to ask for mercy. Is mercy valid if we don't always seek after it? Or sometimes when it comes to us, we have to accept mercy. And when that is necessary, we have to be able to address why, for what prescribed was receiving mercy.
Yeah, yeah. So the principal question is almost always, what is a principle here? I mean, you can write it in many different ways, so I'm not going to ask the question. I would like to see if we could come up with a principle together. I'd like to examine this together. I'd like to see if anybody can give some ideas in the chat box or verbally what a principle around mercy could be. It could be pertaining to this play. It could be pertaining to what you've learned today. How would you, I'm having these thoughts. I'm gonna send you back to your breakout rooms. Take 2 or 3 minutes and come up with a principle and write it down. One of you write it down somewhere, and then we can actually write it down in the class notes. Okay, so let's just take 2 to 3 minutes. I'll kind of call you back in about 2 minutes, and if you need more time, just let me know. Okay, let's go for it. Hey, Jolene, how you doing? Are you busy?
Hey, Julie.
Hi.
I
How's
had
it?
to have my little assistant sitting next to me unmute me because I'm driving right now.
I figured.
I couldn't stare at my phone.
Hi, Trip. How are you?
Actually, it's Brax today. Yesterday was Trip.
Hey, Braxton. Is your mom letting you drive anything?
Oh, he wishes. He wants to drive something so bad.
Oh, man. I've been thinking of you and praying for you. So it may be that your answer will come when you turn a little older. But
yeah. Yeah, it's rough when you're 13 and you want to be older. Like, he gets the whole idea that he doesn't want to grow up any sooner than he has to, because obviously adulthood means a lot of responsibilities, right? But at the same time, he's like, I want to be able to do some of these things that I can't do because I'm only 13.
Dang.
Kind of a rough phase of life.
Yeah. Just keep working at it. Just keep learning those principles, and that's awesome. All right. I think I'm going to close rooms and see if everybody is done.
Okay.
Thanks, Jolene. I'm so glad you're here, though. You give me some support. It doesn't sound really noisy where you are. Like your truck doesn't sound noisy.
It doesn't?
No, I don't hear a thing. I can only hear your voice.
Oh, well, I have my AirPod in, so
Oh,
maybe that helps. But sometimes Chad says that when my AirPod's in, he hears everything around. I don't
no,
know why.
it's just really quiet. So anyway, thanks.
Awesome. Yeah.
All right. Did everybody have enough time to write a principle? No? Okay. Did you have a good discussion that you're almost there? More or less? Okay. So maybe in the future, we need like 3 to 4 minutes. Let's just come up with one right now. Principle of mercy. What would be a cause and what could be an effect? Go ahead.
Yeah, we came up with two kind of sort of ones in our group.
Okay.
One was, in order for mercy to be extended, there has to be a conscious choice.
Ooh.
And then Naomi had a really good one as well.
To be a conscious choice. I like that because that to me is going to make me realize, okay, if I'm going to get myself in a better place with someone who harmed me, I've got to make a choice to be merciful, and I have to grapple with that. And so that is a principle. I love it. Naomi, what was the principle you came up with, kind of, sort of? I love that.
Well, Enoch and I were kind of bouncing ideas off each other, kind of like if you extend mercy, then all parties will be blessed. It's like it's not a one side benefit, or all sides will be benefited.
I love it. Oops, then. Okay, so yeah, if I extend mercy, everyone around me is going to be benefited. Now, whether they choose to accept that mercy or not, that's their choice. But I know I'm going to be benefited, and there is a door open for those people to be benefited. I love that. Those are two good principles. Any other principles that you kind of sort of came up with? The other group?
I just put one in the chat box. We were having a more of a difficult time, but we were talking a lot about like mercy and grace. And like I brought this term necessary faith in humanity. I think that like there's an element of mercy that is like required if you want to have peaceful coexistence with inadequate beings.
Yeah.
And so this is just something I've built up right now. So it's probably not that great, but
no,
it's-
but I can see a cause and effect in there. And I immediately thought of Portia. She had that. She started with that, the quality of mercy. She started with that. And she had peace. And she was able to think logically through it, trying to figure out, it is so illegal to kill someone right here in court. And that's what's going to happen. It is up to me to figure out how on earth I'm going to save a life. But she was thinking of that. So she was causing more peace for all of these people. I think that's great. I mean, always we can shore up and improve our rhetoric, or sorry, the way we write, our syntax, but I'm impressed. So good. My computer is going to die. Oh, and I lost my book. So, okay, in the next 15 minutes, so we could go on and we could look for evidences in a lot of different books about mercy, Jean Valjean in Les Mis. We could look at all the evidence of these principles being lived, and we could also look for how to apply them. But let's go right into justice. Let's maybe do this a little quicker. What is justice? It looks like Hiram said justice to the pleasure or displeasure of the debater. Is that debtor? I think debtor.
Yeah, I misspelled it.
That's okay. I do that all the time. Is inevitable enforcement of an agreement or result of an action. Good. Is there anything else somebody wants to add? An easy way to say is, what is due? Or give what is due. What is due? Right? Or you could even say, receive what is due. That's why I think we should just say, what is due? Okay. Oops, I did not mean to do that. Okay, does anybody disagree that justice is not one of these two things? Are we in agreement that justice?
Well, I'm not disagreeing, but I was wondering why Hiram put in it's an inevitable enforcement, right? Like it has to happen. I was wondering why.
Yeah, that was something that kind of confused me as well.
So the truth will always out. That's what Shakespeare says. In fact, he even says it in The Merchant of Venice. So always, inevitably, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but maybe 20, 30, 50 years ago, we're always listening to cases in court. There's one of my students one of my husband's students in ninth grade, he was teaching them seminary. This is 25 years ago. She had been abducted, raped, and killed. And her body was found in the river around that time up in Burley, Idaho. It's just now come out. This is, I don't know if it was 20 or 25 years ago, but about that length of time. Finally, justice is being due. This debtor is paying his due for what he did to her. So the truth will always out. It is inevitable, right? Is that what you're trying to understand? Or am I wrong with that?
Well, in that case, like in your example, like I would completely agree. But when we say justice, sometimes we can agree to silly things, right? Not necessarily always the law or like a code, right? And not always is it inevitable that we enforce it. So I was just wondering if that's like an all-encompassing definition for all circumstances.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I probably made some promises when I was young and those aren't going to be enforced, except for I have to repent of them. But I guess Enoch.
I think justice
Oh, go ahead.
extends beyond this life. Like in some case, I think it is inevitable if it is something truly just or not just. Like if it was a silly promise saying, I'll give you candy and then you forget or whatever, then it's not necessarily justice needed in that situation unless they really care. But in most cases, justice, if it was failed to be repaid in this life, it will catch up to you in the next, unless you rely on mercy.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's pretty significant that like if you rely on mercy, because like that's the whole point, right? Like none of us can really be expected to live justly, even by God, who's like, the embodiment of justice and mercy. So I think it's a little bit interesting that he puts inevitable enforcement of an agreement or result of an action, because even though it might be inevitable in the next life, that enforcement of an agreement changes a lot depending on the mercy extended to that individual. That's the whole point of mercy, right? It's that change in enforcement.
I like that. So enforcement doesn't have to be with police. It can be in the other ways that it can be enforced. Okay, let's go to this meaning question. Why do we need justice? Is it a need? Or why is there justice? I could say, why is there justice? Go ahead, Carter.
I think we have justice. We have, you can't really learn without consequences, and you can't have consequences without justice. So if we have justice so we can learn and grow and become like God, and that is given to us through consequences, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Good. I cannot tell. You guys, I promise, if you don't use your digital raising of hands, I can't tell who's next. Enoch, and then Hiram, raise yours. Okay.
I was going along with Carter. I feel like justice is also the way you can attain like this next life, because with Christ, because through Christ, if we live righteously through Christ, it is just that we attain eternal life to live with God. So I think justice not only is a punishing force, but it's also a saving force because of.
Yeah, I like that. That's that dichotomy. Kinley.
Yeah, so learning a lot. I've been learning a lot about like natural law, right? We ourselves are beings of justice, right? We have a sense of what's right and wrong, fair, and that's what like our conscience is related to. So we have justice because we have a God of justice and mercy. And I did have a little discrepancy that I was wondering because earlier Elijah was saying, what were we saying? Oh yeah, that we have to have mercy to have peace, right? But we have to have justice to have order, right? So I'm just wondering, and God is the only one who can really balance it truly, but in government, should mercy like ever be a thing? Because government is supposed to be something that keeps order and gives out punishments, right? So I don't know. That's kind of confusing me if mercy is what exudes peace and justice, order.
For the sake of time, Frederick Bastia says government can only be a force that enforces laws. That's all. So the mercy comes from people who are God-fearing and whether they work in government or not. But that's a big, huge discussion. Write it down, take it to the group discussion that they have on Fridays. I love that. Hiram.
My thought was there are 3 ways that justice is enforced, either by the natural laws that are set upon this earth, through the government, the humanistic government that we have here, and then the third is through Jesus Christ, who will be our judge after this life. When there is no government, the other 2 are still in force. Let's see.
What was it, government?
That was just kind of my thought. So there's the humanistic government. There are the natural.
Is that like the human, like the government that we have in our nation? Is that what
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. I just had to not confuse it with like heavenly government, if you know. That's why I said humanistic. So there's the humanistic government. There is the government of the natural laws that God has placed on this earth. And then the third is
heavenly government.
Heavenly government.
Yes. So each one of them, you're saying, deal with the laws of justice in their realm. Each deal with laws of justice in their realm. I love it.
And that also kind of supports what I was saying when it's inevitable, because even if there is no government, like if it's an anarchy here, we're all just doing what we want. We kill, shoot, all the bad, evil crimes that are possible. It will catch up to us. Justice is inevitable. It will always, the effect will always be there. The only thing we can change is what we choose to do.
Yeah, we can turn it around, can't we? That's awesome. Okay, I thought there was another hand up. We have very little time, but can we come up with a principle? This time we're not gonna go into breakout groups. What do we know? What kind of principle can we come up with that we can either apply to this or that we can apply to our lives? Can you think? I'm not going to pressure you, just think and ponder. Hiram, did you have your hand up again, or did we forget to turn it? Okay, go ahead, Enoch.
If justice is not met now, it shall be met later.
Yes, that is a true statement, but I wonder where the cause is, and I wonder where the effect is. It might just be a statement, and maybe I'm not seeing the cause. It implies that whatever choice I make, it implies whatever choice I make will meet with justice either now or later, right? So even though that doesn't sound really awesome how I said that, I'm just going to add it so we come up with an actionable principle statement. Whatever choice I make meets up with justice now or later. Can I do that? So then I've got a cause, choice, and the effect is going to always meet up. I'm going to always meet up with justice now or later, right? Good. If one lives only by justice, then they will die by that same commitment. Ooh, that's very scriptural. That's really good. I'll do this. I just want to go that way. There we go. Whoops. Okay, so both of those are principles, right? They both have causes and effects, right? Wow. Okay, we have 1 minute left. This has been a powerful discussion. We are now going to decide, is it the wager? I forgot to look up. What's the assignment for next week?
It's the proving God exists one.
Yes. Okay. Now that we know justice exists, we're going to see if God exists. So the wager is just 2 pages long. It's a lot of words in the 2 pages, but this is actually part of his book. Let me find it. Hold on. I'm looking. Hello. I can't find it. All right. There it is. Okay. Blaise Pascal wrote Pensées. These are his thoughts. He was a mathematician, by the way. He was a scientist. He was a lot of things. He was a philosopher. This is kind of a big book. It has about, well, those are all notes, I think. Well, no, they aren't. It goes to about 331 pages. The wager is only part of this. If you've got a lot of time and you want to read more of Pensées, you're welcome to. We're just reading his wager, and he is asking some questions that help people to understand if God exists or not. And I want you to look for the argument he's making. So we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the argument on Tuesday. Okay, anybody have questions? Thank you, Carter. Thanks. Anybody have questions about this? Naomi, did you have a question? Or you're just saying goodbye? Okay.
I had a quick question.
Oh, sure.
On the assignment, it only has the wager text. It doesn't have a study guide or anything that you want us to fill out. You want us to just make our own pages or?
Yeah, actually on the assignment, let's see. It says answer the questions for the study guide. Yeah, I need to change that right now. So what I want you to do is I'm just going to say, look for his argument. Look for his argument. No study guide on this. And on the number 2, I'll just say, write out his argument. Okay. All right. That is it. Thank you for saying that. Okay. See ya. Bye-bye. Thanks, Hiram. Thanks, Jolene. Good luck, Braxton. You're going to learn a lot while you're watching your mom drive. See ya.